To talk about Elon Musk becoming a trillionaire and a half. I'm just going to keep walking because I read somewhere that when you walk, it makes your thoughts come out more clearly. So let's see if that works. But it is also going to be on the balance sheets effectively of average Americans because it is going to end up in people's 401ks because NASDAQ, which is where SpaceX's stock debuted for their IPO, they changed the rules of their exchange specifically for SpaceX because they wanted to get the IPO. So now any index funds that track the NASDAQ are going to have SpaceX in them specifically. And not only that, but Elon Musk is artificially pushing up the price of SpaceX shares, not just because all the potential growth is already factored into the company. SpaceX right now is worth more than Amazon. When a company IPOs, they put out a certain amount of stock as the initial offering. That's called the float. Usually the float will be, some sort of double-digit percentage. In this case, SpaceX put out, I think it was 4 or 5% as the float, which means you have a low supply, high demand, that pushes the price up artificially. And that's because in about 90 days, I think the end of September, there are going to be a lot more shares that are going to be on the market. I think it's going to be something like 30%. And at that point, the price is all going to go down. So not only is that element a little bit of a mini rug pull, SpaceX is completely overvalued, and I will get to that part in a second. But in the meantime, the reason that SpaceX IPOing so big is such a problem is because Anthropic and OpenAI are also going to IPO really soon. And since a lot of the stock market is basically truly just vibes, because SpaceX had such a big IPO and it is mostly an AI company, so Anthropic and OpenAI are also going to IPO, and they're going to have probably hugely inflated values because these AI companies are completely inflated anyway. And that wouldn't be such a bad problem if all of these tech companies like the Mag 7 weren't accounting for 40% of the value of the stock market. And if the stock market weren't kind of like the only thing holding this whole casino that is our economy together, every other business is subject to normal market rules. And my concern is that when the value of SpaceX, OpenAI, and Anthropic and all these companies actually starts to be measured in realistic terms, I'm worried that that will crash the stock market. You might say, oh, only half of the country is invested in the stock market. Okay, so the other half doesn't have $500 for an emergency. So I'm pretty confident that those are actually the people who would suffer the most should there be a market crash. But back to SpaceX. Elon Musk is worth $1.5 trillion now. In the past week, he has gotten another $500 billion based on nothing. But even that first trillion, SpaceX actual best solid business is Starlink. But Starlink isn't a big enough business to sustain this valuation. But XAI was merged into SpaceX. So SpaceX is an AI company. The rockets are also like kind of a thing, but they say that they're going to put data centers into space. And I don't know if you've seen any of Elon's rocket launches lately, but they haven't been going great. First of all, SpaceX's AI is pretty bad, to the point that SpaceX just acquired an AI company for $60 billion today, which suggests that they don't think their own AI is good enough. Then there's the fact that all of these AI companies are engaged in circular financing, and basically the only way that they could possibly ever fulfill their projections is it's not possible because the data centers can't get built fast enough. There aren't enough potential customers to pay enough money for the revenue that they need to achieve their metrics. And probably the most embarrassing part is that you have all these institutional banks. They're all in on the SpaceX IPO. And do you know what the multiplier for this IPO was? When it first went on the market, it was around 90x, and now the valuation is over 100. And even Starlink, the legitimate part of the business, their profits are subsumed by the rest of SpaceX, which is a money loser. And the founders on cash. And I think what's so troubling about the fact that you have all these institutions on board with this is that they are essentially saying, we're betting on Elon Musk because in terms of the shares, Elon Musk has 84% of the voting shares, even though he now owns only around 40% of the actual equity in the company. So he controls the company for good. So those investors, those banks, are betting on Elon Musk's dominance, which is essentially betting on this global oligarchy, because how else would the company sustain such a value? And like I said, this problem is not just with SpaceX. This is a bigger tech value problem. And of course, the fact that NASDAQ would change their own rules to put this highly overvalued stock on their exchange and then force index funds to buy it at a price that they know is inflated. But we don't have any regulators anymore, do we? It truly just amazes me that the people who are considered the smartest and most successful put their faith in a man who is clearly on